Hello and welcome to another episode of Creative-ish. We're your host. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Ariana. If you're new around here, welcome to the pod. Creative-ish is a podcast where we discuss everything related to creativity and running a creative business. So if you're not familiar with us, me and Kelly have our own creative studio where we do everything from brand design to website design to marketing, digital marketing strategies, and all of that. And today we're doing an episode for all of you that want to create your own brand, your own business, no matter what industry you're in. I think that this topic is very relevant. And it's the topic about having good taste in your business, and what it means to have a unique sense of taste, and how your taste is essentially like your biggest advantage with your brand, because everything else can be replicated. Like your service can be replicated, your product can be replicated. Like anyone can just get the number of your manufacturer and make this and sell the same product. The quality can be replicated. Everything can be replicated, but it's very hard for someone else to replicate the way that you deliver those things, the way that you deliver your product, the way that you talk about it, the way that you make the visuals and do everything related to your tone of voice and your personality. So that is why taste is your biggest advantage. And essentially, like, what good taste is having good judgment on knowing what will resonate with your audience. So essentially, your taste is your ability to discern between what is good versus what is bad. And it's kind of like your standard. The better your taste, kind of like the higher your standard, depending on what you do. But that's kind of like how we see taste coming into the business world and the branding world, and why it's such an important factor. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about how to develop your taste and how to implement your taste into your brand. So for this episode, I actually came up with a really creative acronym with the word taste. It's an acronym that basically simplifies how to practice and develop your taste and what it means to have good taste in your business. And the first letter for this acronym for the word taste is the T, and the T stands for being true to you. So that is a huge aspect of your taste, and that is what makes it unique. It's because it's true to you, it's true to your story, it's true to what you've been through, it's true to what you value as a person and what you stand for.
What you do that is true to yourself and your messaging and the way you talk about things, that is truly what's going to make you stand apart and what's going to set you apart from that herd mentality and what everybody else is doing. And I feel like this can happen a lot with creators on a lot of platforms. Like, they just follow the herd mentality and they just do what works. And sometimes that's fine if you're starting out, like not recreating the wheel, but eventually you will need to refine that taste and be true to yourself. And it's also what's going to help you show up more authentically. It is what is going to help people connect with you on a deeper level. Like, you're not going to be just a copy of this other creator or that other creator. This is something that actually happened to Nathaniel Drew. Like, he admired Matt D'Avella so much, and he maybe replicated some of his styles, but a lot of people were confusing him with Matt D'Avella, or they were just saying that he was like the ripped off version or like the cheaper version. And he really had to take a step away and think about, okay, how can I make my content different? How can I make my content as true to myself as I can? And that's really when he started to create content that was different than Matt D'Avella. And he actually has a video on it, like why I hate Matt D'Avella or something like that. And he talks about this. He doesn't actually hate him, but he talks about this thing of comparison and how you really, in all aspects, you need to be true to yourself and do things that call your name and that feel authentic.
Yeah, I think that if we see someone in our industry that is like killing it and they are so successful, and they, you see their stories, like you can read everything that they've done since they left high school, and you get this urge to like, well, if I do the same thing, maybe I can get to that level of success. And this is an easy way for you to kind of like lose your taste. Because, for example, in the creator world, we see a lot of creators that try to mimic each other. So, for example, the algorithm is pushing this type of trend, so I'm going to jump on that trend because I want the algorithm to push my videos. So that is a way that we kind of like water down our tastes to do something that we know that is going to sell. And that is just an example, but I think this happens across every industry, like trying to figure out, oh, that's going to sell, that's going to move, without it being specifically true to you, without it having any personality attached to it. And just kind of like, I also see a lot of people that make content that is like reading off a script of the first article that they read on Google and not adding any of their personal anecdotes or personal opinions to whatever they're doing. And I think that is such an important part if you are trying to grow an online presence, or if you are trying to grow a community. You need to attach your story to the message that you're trying to deliver, because nobody can replicate that. And relating to this topic, I heard this quote the other day. I'm missing the person that actually said this, but it was basically her advice on how to create a magazine that stands apart and that creates like a cult-like community. And it was create a sound, not an echo. And I think that this is relevant in whatever you are trying to do. The way that you stand out is by making your own sound, making your own voice heard, and not just following the echo and getting lost in the sea of noise that is on the internet. So that is why incorporating your story and incorporating what makes you you will really make you stand apart and will make people gravitate towards you. So for example, another thing that I can mention is that when we started Aria Studio, we were kind of like a little bit ashamed of how young we were at the time. So when I started, I was 19, and I didn't mention that anywhere because I didn't want people to not take me seriously because I was so young. But the reality is that because I was so young, I was able to have a different point of view in that industry, and I was able to bring a different set of skills to the table that somebody that has years in the industry probably could have not noticed or could have not seen. And that was actually a big advantage that I could have used. But I tried to, water it down and not even mention it because I didn't want people to judge me. But the reality is that you build an audience that is obsessed with you for the things that make you different, because most probably they can relate to those things as well. And it's the people that are able to open up and let themselves be shown in whatever you're doing. Like if you are wanting to be the face of your business, how much can you really open up and share about like your vision, your story, what has gotten you to this point? That's what makes them be obsessed with you and love you and like get like attached to you.
And yeah, now in our studio, I don't feel like we're ashamed to share our age, and I feel like we're a lot looser on this podcast as well. And I feel like that has helped us connect with a lot of younger people online. And now we are using our Gen Z advantage. And this is something that we've talked in previous episodes about. And now it feels so much more authentic showing up online and showing up in real life as well. It's like I have all my cards on the table. Like you decide whether you want to work with me or not. And that feels freeing. Like I was saying, and it is true to ourselves. And it's like we can be fun, we can be goofy, we can be funny if we want, but we're also serious and we're also down to business. And we love talking about business. And now we're not so young as we were. So I feel like that also helps. But yeah, now I don't feel like that shame and like I'm hiding it. It's out in the open.
Exactly. But yeah, I think that making your taste true to you is about taking something from your story and putting it in the main messaging of your brand. And that is something that is going to be recognizable only to you. So it's kind of like repeating that part of your story over and over and making sure that people can attach that with you, if that makes sense.
And now moving on, we can talk about the A in the TASTE acronym, which is ambition. And this is so important. Ambition is something that you definitely need if you are going to be starting a business. A lot of times we see business owners that might not be passionate, that they talk about their projects in such a small way, like they make themselves smaller for other people. to maybe understand their idea. And I feel like this is a mistake. Like, you shouldn't try to make yourself small in these situations when you're talking about your idea. You should set your goals and plan a way to achieve them, and always feel proud of what you are doing. Like, even before we had Aria Studio, we had another product based business that, yeah, it was a small business, but every time I talked about it with such ambition and such big ideas. And I think people really resonated with that. And I think other people might have been inspired by that. And whenever I encountered other people that talked about their businesses, maybe they made their businesses look smaller than they actually were. So, again, your taste framework, like, you need to have that ambition, and you need to believe that, to have that delusion and believe that you are really good. And that's something I believe with Aria Studio as well. Every time we talk about Aria Studio, we talk about it with such proudness, and we have goals and we have ambitions. And that is something that is contagious. And I feel like that is something people are really attracted to. And especially when we step inside that identity. Like, before, we had, we maybe wanted an employee, but those opportunities weren't coming to us. And something that has happened recently, because of the way we've changed the way we show up online and in other spaces, we've gotten a lot of requests of people wanting to be part of our team and people wanting to be interns. And it's honestly been surprising to us, but it is, when we had that ambition, because it is so contagious. It's something that I can't even describe. It's, you just have to feel it inside of you.
You have to have this certainty and this belief that this can become the biggest thing. And the reason that I included ambition in here is because your level of ambition significantly affects the way that you show up with your brand and with your business, because how much ambition and how much you believe in how, oh, this can be the biggest thing, that is going to affect the decisions that you make within the brand, who you work with, what you put out. And it really just has to do with, like, the more ambitious that you are, probably the higher the standards that you will have. So the quality will be different, the work will be different. And that is why ambition is so important. And how much you care about your brand affects how much other people care about your brand. Because if you're very passionate about it, that shines through. And if you aren't, and you're trying to, like, force this messaging onto your brand that you don't 100% believe yourself, or that is not relevant to who you are, to your core, that is going to shine through as well.
Yeah, you have to believe in the quality of your service, the quality of your products, and what you bring to the table.
And then the next letter in the acronym is the S. And the S I put that stands for socially aware. And the reason that I put socially aware is because I feel like that is such a huge factor in creating a brand that speaks to people and that resonates with people. If you're not in touch with what people are asking for in your industry, what people are tired of, or what people are going to want next based on, like, their conditions, or it also has to do with, like, understanding your demographic very well. It's about basically just being very aware of their condition right now and where they want to get in the future. So that is what socially aware is. And essentially, how aware you are about your community and about the people that you want to serve will affect the decisions that you make within your brand. And a brand that I can use as an example for this is August, the period brand. And the reason that I think that they have created such a socially aware brand is because they have created just a brand new standard and narrative for what a period brand should be or should stand for. So for example, they have a model where it's like you buy a product and they donate a product to a community that is in need. And they also have a messaging around their brand that is not just catered to women. So they're very inclusive, which is something that specifically Gen Z is very important to them, that a brand is inclusive in that way. And so their messaging is for everyone that menstruates instead of, like, just having messaging across women. So that is kind of like an example of a brand that understands their target very well. And also just like how they communicate. So you can see it like on their TikTok and on their Instagram that they are definitely not following any standards of what period brands do. For example, like I feel like this new generation is kind of like tired of being shamed for having periods, and that really shines through in like their messaging and their photography because they're very blood positive. They're very positive about like showing the pad or, being very transparent. So they were able to create a brand that is such a refreshing brand in the period industry and that really can resonate with the people that were tired of having such bland period brands that don't really align with your values.
They are like destigmatizing having a period
Mm-hmm.
and the shame that comes with having a period, because I'm sure a lot of people listening, like when you first get your period, it's like something to be ashamed of, something to hide. I love what August is doing and how they're just making a positive experience and something that is totally normal. And another example I wanted to mention in Socially Aware as well is in 2010. It was like the peak of the fast fashion movement era. Everything was coming to light about just how dirty the fashion industry really was. And I think one of the brands that pioneered the sustainable fashion movement was Everlane, and they just came into the scene and were so radically transparent with how they were manufacturing their products. They shared where their products were made, their exact factories, the types of materials that they use for their clothing. They just shared a lot of stuff. They even shared like how much the materials cost, how much the labor costs, how much is the markup for this product that you're getting. And that was just so refreshing to the industry as well. And now Everlane is obviously a more established brand and it's a little bit more in the mainstream. But when they came into the scene, they were so socially aware that everybody was just sick. Everybody wanted a good alternative that felt a little bit modern, because a lot of sustainable brands, maybe they were on the bit more earthy side, a little bit more hippie-ish, and they really created like modern essentials, and they just radically changed the space, and I believe they are still a pioneer today. And another brand that has been a more recent brand that I think is also socially aware is the brand of Matilda Jerf. So it's Jerf Avenue. And Matilda Jerf is a influencer, a content creator, and basically what she has done that is so, as we were saying earlier, so true to herself is amazing. She has created this entire brand that makes her products in Portugal. All of her products are made in Portugal, I believe. So they have such a transparent supply chain. She lives in Switzerland, so she is very close to the factories. And what she has done has been amazing because she is using that taste. She is curating pieces that she would use, that she knows her audience would use. Like, she is so in tune with what her audience wants and what is happening currently. She has been able to produce so much and so much impact, and what she is doing, I believe, truly is different. And I think there's something to be said. Like, a lot of people can say, oh, yeah, but she might have gotten that because, oh, she's an influencer. But no, because there are so many celebrity and influencer brands that have failed and have not achieved the level of success that she has achieved. She even has, like, most of her models are her followers or the customers of the brand, and they're called the Jerf Angels. She also has a resale program. Like, if you want to resell pieces of Jerf Avenue that you have, you can use her own program, and it just keeps the community tight knit. And as I said, she's so socially aware of what is happening in her community and what her brand wants. And that's what has been able to lead to such success. Like, if you just look at her brand, it has been a massive success. And yeah, everything is curated and everything is based on her taste.
Yeah, I think that the reason that it's so loved is because it's so consistent with her style. she's not doing stuff that it's just random. I feel like she knows her target and her demographic very well, and she understands that, oh, this is what they're going to want next, and that's what she is like producing. She's not just making a random label or
Exactly.
like she
Yeah,
made
white
the effort
labeling
to
stuff.
produce the clothing instead of just white labeling it.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I don't want you guys to get it mixed. Like, socially aware is not specifically like it has to be a socially conscious brand, with the whole being eco-friendly or, inclusive. Like, if that is not true to you and that is not who you are at your core, and it's not something that you value, then that's not what socially aware means. I think that socially aware comes into play because it's about understanding very well the people that you want to serve and understanding their problems very well and understanding how your brand is positioned in their lives and what role your brand has in their lives. So that is kind of like what socially aware means when it relates to your branding and the problems that you solve and your taste. And the next letter is the T, and this T stands for transcendent. So, transcendent just means going beyond the ordinary limits, surpassing what is the usual or what is the ordinary, and trying to bring something new or different to the table. So, when I think about transcending, I think about looking at your industry right now or looking at the problem that you're trying to solve and seeing, how can I solve this problem from a different angle? How can I make this better? How can I make this different? Or maybe it can be like August, where they are making the same period products but are making them for a different demographic. So they are speaking to a different demographic. So maybe it's about looking at what is currently being done and seeing what spin can you bring to the table.
Exactly. And I think this is something we've covered in other episodes as well, but like, how can you mimic things that maybe other industries are doing that you can apply to your own industry that makes you unique and makes you stand out?
Exactly. Like August, I think that they got inspired obviously by the Tom's shoe brand. Like, I feel like maybe they were pioneering in the whole buy one gift one. So they are doing the same thing with the periods pads. They are donating for every purchase that you make period products to other people. So they took something that was working very well in another industry and injected it into their own business. And then the final letter in the TASTE acronym is the E, and the E stands for experiment, which is probably the most important step into you developing a taste that is unique to you and that is layered and that makes you do things that are cool.
And experimenting is also what is going to help you refine that taste. They always say like when you become older, like your taste gets better. And that's the same for business. That's the same when you put yourself out there and experiment as much as you can. Your taste will get better and you will start to refine it until it is, chef's kiss. And it also positions you as a trendsetter and as a tastemaker, and shows people that you're willing to try new things and that you're not like stuck in a certain thing, and that you are like part of the future and you accelerate with the times and keep up with what's going on.
Exactly. I think that for your taste to be recognized as your own, you need to experiment with a bunch of different things until you get to that point that you know what is true to you 100%. And this takes a lot of, experimenting, trying on a lot of different things, trying on a lot of different identities to see what lights you up the most and what feels the most like you. And we're constantly evolving, so it's not like you will have the same taste during your whole life. Like, for example, when you think of your taste buds, like, think of how much your taste buds have evolved since you were a kid.
It applies to everything in life. And as I said, it's something that sets you apart and that really shows your potential audience that you're on top of your stuff, and that you, as I said, are a tastemaker, are a trendsetter, are doing new things constantly. And when I mean constantly, it doesn't mean like every other week or every other month, but just a healthy amount of time that you switch it up and change things around.
And I don't think it's like switching things around, like your business strategy or your focus in your business, but it's more so putting yourself in different situations. And I think that experimenting also helps you a lot with being more socially aware. So, for example, experimenting by traveling to different places, getting to know different types of people, putting yourself in rooms where you're maybe not the smartest one in the room so that you can learn a lot from different types of people. That is what experimentation is, and that is why it's such an important factor in your growth and your brand growth and yourself as an entrepreneur and in yourself as a person. Like, it makes you a more layered person and a more well-rounded person.
Yeah, and in terms of business, like when you have your business, you need to experiment with maybe different structures and different things that might resonate better with your target audience. Like something I've been seeing pop off a lot recently have been restaurants that are implementing like subscriptions to their restaurants, like a subscription based models for their clients, because since the pandemic, things have been kind of weird in the restaurant sector and maybe they haven't gotten as much sales. So they have had to experiment and really step out of the box to see what lands with clients. And the type of subscription based models that restaurants have been working on has been like you pay a certain price and it might include you certain things throughout the month. And it brings a lot of loyalty to that brand and that restaurant in particular. And it builds up that loyalty as to where clients keep going to that same restaurant or that same chain of restaurants because they are a member. So it's a little bit different from loyalty points, but it is something like you pay a fee monthly and you get a quantity of something.
It's a great experimentation for restaurants.
Yeah, and we'll see how it affects in the next few years because it's still very new, so we don't know the effects of it, but that is something the restaurant industry is experimenting with.
No, and I think subscription models are very interesting, and they are something that can be applied to almost any industry. And honestly, I don't know. Like, I am not a subscription based person because I feel like I like to jump around a bit, but I wonder like how it works for them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we'll see like how this affects in the next few years, but I know it's a strategy that restaurants are doing to experiment with their clientele and to, increase their cash flow.
And I think that experimentation in business can also be like bringing in something that is not so typical in your lane. So, for example, I see also now a lot of creative studios that are also making lines of physical products. There's this brand called the Mayfair Group, and they used to be a service agency, I believe. And then they started making their products like sweatshirts and had a really cool messaging. They have a really cool messaging, and I love all of their products. But they used to be an agency and then they brought this line of products. So that was like an interesting experimentation for them. And then they found that they can do so much better selling the sweatshirts and marketing the sweatshirts. And they really have created like this cult following on social media because of how cool their sweatshirts are. But like what I'm trying to say is that when you add a layer like that of experimentation to your business, it can open up a lot of doors. If you are stuck in just being seen as a service provider and people only come for you for give me a logo, but you feel like you're lacking that brand recognition, then experimenting with a product that people can bring to their lives and bring with them can be such an interesting way to build up like that brand recognition.
And maybe even attach their identity to. Like, we, for example, for this podcast, we've been meaning to do like some caps that say like creative-ish or something like that. And that is like such a cool phrase. And that is something that people can attach themselves to. And it's something that makes the brand feel real in a sense. And it makes people feel like they're part of something. And I really love that. And it's something that also we keep on giving examples here, but Summer Fridays has done. People love Summer Fridays. And apart from their products, they've now created like 2 products, like 2 physical merch products, and they are so cute and people buy them because they identify with the brand and they want to attach themselves and their identity to this brand that is Summer Fridays because they feel connected to it. And that is something really, really powerful that distinguishes you from other people. And that is something we also did with a recent client. Like, she came to us with a certain name, and we were like, let's experiment and try to do something different. And we decided on a totally different name so that people can easily feel like they're part of the brand and it feels more unique.
I think that naming is such a huge part if you want to either create a community or create a brand that people can identify themselves with. So yeah, experimentation, a key factor in you developing your own taste. And that is the final letter in the TASTE acronym. So to recap, we had T for true to you, we had the A for ambition, we had the S for socially aware, the second T for transcendent, and the last E for experiment. So hopefully like that gives you an idea of all the things that go into creating good taste, a taste that resonates with people, having taste that sets you apart from, whatever it is that you do.
The noise,
Mm-hmm.
as Ari said earlier, create a sound, not an echo. So how can you create your own sound?
Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you think and if you're going to put this acronym to use. Remember that your taste is the most important advantage that you can have, and it's something that cannot be replicated. And make sure that your taste is also recognizable. So something that you can do is ask your audience if they recognize you for a certain thing, like if they recognize you for a certain personality type, messaging, style, whatever it is. Because if people cannot pinpoint what it is that makes you different, then probably that means that you're not being consistent enough with your taste.
As we've said all throughout this episode, it's very important for you to have your own taste, and it's really what's going to make people connect with you and can pinpoint you from a crowd and from the noise. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you enjoyed it and you're feeling nice, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or leave us a rating on Spotify. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.